Hi ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Outriders. Okay, so one of the things I so desperately wish I was explained to me is how the hell the endgame of Outriders actually works to some extent. And honestly, what is the most efficient way to actually progress within the endgame? Especially with like world tiers and all these things. So first things first, one thing that you have to understand is that there is world tiers and then there's challenge tiers. Challenge tiers are taking place within the endgame resource expeditions, or endgame event expeditions. It's just a randomly generated thing. If you guys don't, again, there are certain expeditions that are incredibly viable to get gold on, which gold gives you a higher yield. You guys can see that if you complete this within a certain time frame, you get better and better gear. Fantastic. If you don't, you don't. So you want to get you want to complete it as soon as you possibly can, or as fast as you possibly can. So you want to choose a world tier that's hopefully the higher world tier, and you're able to complete it. Again, it does seem like a lot of this game is based around this perception of, do I have enough strength to actually beat this in general? And yeah, so this right here, this is world tier. So you're going to start off, I think, at like 3 or 4, depending on where you beat the game in. And then you're going to go up and up and up and up and up until you eventually get to a place where you're actually capped. And how this actually works, if I'm not mistaken, you need to beat whatever encounter you're going at on the highest possible stage, and then you're able to get access to this next world tier, if that makes any sense. So now, one thing that you're going to find when you're pursuing this endeavor of, okay, this is the end game, I'm going to go and do these expeditions, which are basically like just like quick strikes where you can just quickly jump in, like dungeons, do them really quick. At the end, you're going to kill this boss, and then you're going to have access to, of course, a chest. Open the chest, get some loot, and go forth and conquer. Now, if you guys do not know about this, I made a video about it a couple days ago, but basically, but there is value to everything in Outriders in terms of rarities, because you can take a green and make it a blue, you can take a blue and make it a purple, and therefore what you're trying to look at when you're getting to endgame is unfortunately not the appearance, although I'm sure that's what a lot of us would want. And I really hope they add a transmog system in this game at some point, because god, I'm tired looking like a freak. Just a total mess. Anyways, so I've been using this as the example because to me it's like the ideal perfect glove. So we get anomaly damage, or anomaly power. That's amazing. We get status power and cooldown rate. For those guys who do not know, I'm building my Devastator as a caster. Seemed like the only viable kind of weird option. But yes, a caster build is what I'm building him in. So anomaly power, status power, and cooldown rate are all stats that are of the most possible value to me. Not only that, but he has ground crush built in. So when I bring this to purple, I can just change the other mod out, and it's still very valuable. So that's exactly what you're kind of going to be looking for, is look at blues and look at what you're going to be going for. So is your build and your skill tree and whatnot, or in your class ability skill tree, are they scaling off of what? For my build, I scale off of anomaly power. I amplify anomaly power. My armor amplifies off of my anomaly power, and whenever something is bleeding, I'm getting health steal from that bleed. I'm basically life stealing from the bleed chance, therefore status effect is huge because that's affecting bleed chance, of course. Or bleed damage and etc. Also, there are tiny things like this, which is bleed inflicted on enemies deal 35 or 30% more damage. Fantastic. And then we got just general buffs in terms of damage, such as this. And then we got a bunch of cooldowns just to try to keep our abilities up as much as we possibly can. But that's also why cooldown rate is so valuable for us. So if you're playing any other character, say the Technomancer, and if you're running a build that's very heavy into your turrets, then of course you're probably going to want to go anomaly damage as much as you possibly can, or anomaly power, which hopefully will scale off of damage, and whatever else you have. If you have something that scales off of gun damage, then do that. If you find that you are dealing enough damage with your turrets and whatnot, then maybe go into some firepower. If you find you want your turrets to be like the head of the spear, the most damage you possibly can, then go and give yourself a lot of anomaly power. That will amplify your turret's damage and whatnot. Also, if you don't want to do that, if you want to run the Technomancer as some sort of weird, like freeze kind of thing, and you're just doing a shit ton of weapon damage and you're life stealing constantly, so you're able to heal, and your turrets are there for aggro control, then that's another route you can go. But you need to prioritize where you're going with your build and prioritize those stats, and then use the copious amounts of resources that you're going to be getting by doing expeditions or farming bosses or whatever, and you're going to funnel them into itself. And again, just to go over the mod system, this is what endgame looks like in terms of how you get to the next world tier, and then the next world tier, and then the next world tier. So ideally, what it looks like, to break it down as clear as I possibly can, either do expeditions that you can achieve and do, or farm bosses. Either or doesn't matter. I would say that there's more inherent value for expeditions because not only do you get a lot of purples, but you get a lot of blues, like a lot of blues. And the blues, again, your goal is to try to get something that perfectly aligns with your character. Again, the gloves that I just showed you guys are the perfect example. Again, right here, anomaly damage power status. If I can get this on every one of my armors and hopefully have at least one or two of them having like the right ability effect that I want, fantastic. Or an overpowered like a tier 2 mod, then perfect, and then I can just slot in the ability effect, right? So that works, but it's just that scaling that makes endgame a cakewalk, and you need to have like an incredible abundance of firepower, of cooldown, of anomaly power, depending on what you're building. So again, what you would do is you'd find, like again, if you have this perfect ability, if you have, this is a perfect glove, it's got earthquake increased damage, which I already have on my other glove, it's got anomaly status power, it's got cooldown rate, it's got everything that I'm looking for. What you would do is you would take this absolutely disgusting, heinous looking glove, and you would improve the rarity to, of course, its max tier, which is purple. And purples are what you're going to be experiencing when you get to endgame, so no worries there. Trust me, trust me. Purples are going to be able to take you into the land of endgame, which can get you golds. But you probably will still use your purples for a long time coming. I digress. Now, something that someone said to me, which I agree with, is level up blues and then improve the rarity. Do it that way. Don't improve the rarity to purple and then level them up. Try to stay away from that. So I will take this and I will level this up as many times as I possibly need to get all the way to 40. Boom, max current level until I increase my world tier. That is what we're going to be at. And now we're going to improve the rarity. Bang! We're also going to choose between any of these mods. So now we have a really good stat, but not quite as good as it could be. So now we have taken a blue, and it has all the right stat priorities. It has again everything that I'm more or less going after. But also, I can actually replace this mod if I desire. So I can go here and replace any of these mods. I get any choice. I can put a tier 3 in here if I happen to have it. I can put tier 2s of any desire that I possibly want. But I'm probably going to replace the plate piercer with something that I think could be more valuable and beneficial in tier 2. Anyways, but here's another thing that you're going to need to do when you get to endgame and to make your life easier. This is, again, what you're going to be doing as expeditions to gain power, to gain gear, so that you can progress to higher world tiers, so that you can get better legendaries or better rarities, which eventually will lead you to legendaries, which is, of course, peak. We'll explain why legendaries are like the true endgame in but a moment. But one of the things you're going to want to do as well, this is something that you absolutely should not do, and I mentioned this in so many videos, but this is all kind of coexisting in the same kind of sphere of what is endgame. How do you stop having a shitty time with the game and start like killing shit? Here it is. So this is what we're going through right now, the modding system. So again, you're going to want to buff anomaly damage. How you attain shards is by breaking down any sort of gear that has that said effect. So anomaly power, you'll get that effect from breaking down these gear. If it has status, if it has cooldown, you'll get that shard from those things. So right here, I would spend some shards on buffing up anomaly damage to probably 3,000. So now we have a good bit of anomaly damage coming from just this one glove. We're getting 3,000. Not only that, but I'm going to put some cooldown in here as well, just because cooldown is massively valuable. Massively valuable, especially if you're playing the caster build. And of course, you guys can see, where is it? Anomaly power is... Yeah, I have 1,400. Most things I have 2,000 in. It's because I've been using a lot of anomaly power on a lot of my other gear. But this is like the first true good piece of armor that I found. And that's the game. Sometimes you're like, oh, ooh, new pants that are legendary. Bonus fire rate, skill, life, leech, and close range damage. None of that works for my build. And also, yeah, vulnerability got fucked in the last patch. So it's just like, oh, great. Anyways, none of that really matters. Again, you can get by really far with just buffing up your gear to the max level that it possibly can be. And how you do that is just by doing expeditions, breaking down your blue tier gear, and then infusing it to a higher level. And then when all of your gear is level 40 or your current world tier, then you probably should be able to smash the ever-living shit out of that world tier and complete it really fast. Again, weapons also come into the mix, but that's another thing. Same kind of idea though. Again, it's like you want something that feeds into your build, hopefully has crit damage, it's a shotgun, has automatic, or an assault rifle that just has high base damage and low magazine and a fast reload. And yeah, or you can just get lucky and find a legendary, which has a prefix. The first bullet of the magazine does like an exorbitant amount of damage. Now you're good to go. You're like, that can carry you. So there's many ways that this story can end, but that's generally the idea. Again, endgame is tied intrinsically with the mod situation and like building your character. And that to me, I think, is the struggle and the feeling of like lostness is when people don't know that's essentially how you're going to be farming. So if you guys want like if just to keep this in the back of your mind so that you understand the process, the motions in the ocean, the why you're doing what you're doing. Do expeditions. You can do low tier expeditions if you need to, just in order to complete them and etc. You're looking for anything that affects what you're going for. For me, it's anomaly damage, cooldown rate, and status power. Hopefully it also has a mod of an ability that you actually want to use and has in value. So then you are going to take that blue and infuse it to high hell. Now you might eventually run out of resources. Fine. Keep grinding expeditions, keep farming bosses, break down that gear, break down that gear, break down that gear, and then infuse the one good resource to high hell, and who knows, maybe you'll even get a better resource or a cooler piece of armor and whatever, right? Also, I do think when you break down a leveled up piece of armor, it does give you back some of the shards that you spent on it, because I think it's a total of the shards that you've used in a weird way. To some extent. Now, one more thing. Every single time you complete expedition after expedition, this hunk of a Samoan boy over here with his scratches and scars trade some resources. Yeah, so this is also a massive part, there we go, of the endgame. But there are some fantastic things within the shop, such as this absolutely devastating shotgun that looks right up my alley. Crit rate, status power, and close range damage. Oh! It's so gorgeous, but it also requires so much. Oh, by the way, I messed up. Titanium is something that you get from breaking down purples and whatnot, which can help you in crafting. This is the resource drop pod thing that can buy you this, but I do believe, no, they're the same thing. Yeah, so drop pod resources are what all of this is going to be favored for. But again, I would probably save for these things right here and keep them. That's the key. Like, this one has such good base stats, crit damage, status power, and close range damage. All of that is amazing, and probably could save me playing the Devastator because I'm all into bleed. Ugh. But this is huge. If I could get this, it would just be bliss. It would be so much of a better time. I can't even describe to you how much of like, okay, maybe there's hope. Reduces boulder dash's cooldown by 90. Eat me, you rat. Yeah, see, also this one. This one's probably the best, actually, just because it has scrap grenade. The first shot fired. Yeah, sorry. The first shot fired and you reload, it basically deals a crazy amount of damage in a giant radius. So yeah, it's just, you're just dealing so much damage with this weapon. It's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, oh my. If only it had like skill life leech at a passive, it'd just be nuts. Sorry, getting distracted. Yes, supposed to be telling you guys how to get into endgame. But yes, this is all valuable if you're like, oh my god, this thing is perfect for my specific build. It has boom, boom, boom in stats, and it has a thing I use. Then you go forth and do whatever you're gonna do. But again, it's about scaling what you're gonna be using and getting to that as soon as you possibly can. But also, I would try to save for these because these tend to be like just better than most things, generally speaking. But also, as you increase your world tier, you're going to be getting more and more drop pod resources. So eventually you'll have enough to buy a lot of the stuff in there, actually. So yes. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that is more or less all of it in terms of how the hell you progress and what is the end game of Outriders. It is expeditions, killing bosses, and getting gear, and what gear means. And how you use any gear, blues, greens, anything, leveling up the tier to blue, or again, just looking at the substats, seeing its potential. I will say there is something good about leveling something up to blues, so you can take greens, level them up to blues, and then you can see if the mod that they have is even remotely good, because sometimes you'll get like the worst outcome for your mod, like a skill that you'll never use, and then a passive second mod that sucks. So in that case, it's kind of a dud, although you could kind of still use it because the stats are, I think, more important in some cases, at least early progression, than mods. I'm not sure if I would entirely say it. It's kind of a mixed bag. It's kind of a little bit of both, I suppose. Again, my advice would be wait until you find the right piece of gear. And if that means you have to stay in like World Tier 1 or 2, or not World Tier 1 or 2, it's like World Tier 6 or 7 or 5 or 6, and you're for sure able just to accrue a ton of blues, then you finally find that one thing that's amazing, great. You're done. You just need to get enough resources to bump that thing up to your current level and make it fantastic. And you're good. If I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's how the cookie crumbles. Also, I wanted to say this. If anybody who is at endgame who has more tips and a better breakdown, hell, of just in words about how to actually, or what is the endgame, how to go about it, am I missing something? Is there some sort of god tier farm that I will probably have to make a video about if you guys tell me about it? That can massively help amplify your progression or where you're going or why you're going there, please let me know in the comments down below. I am not perfect in the slightest. I would love the information as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that is essentially how you begin endgame and what that is all about within Outriders. Hopefully that made sense. Also, hopefully I put some gameplay somewhere on screen so it wasn't just me like ranting like a lunatic. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again for your time, and